A lack of affordable housing has pushed an estimated 900 people in Mecklenburg County out of their homes and into the streets. Well, fortunately, Charlotte has a shelter to help the homeless. But for 3 days and 2 nights, News 36 reporter Dave Stanley went undercover on the streets of Charlotte, and he spent a night at the shelter.
He was followed by a News 36 producer who conducted some of the interviews you'll see. Tonight, Dave brings us the inside story on what he found on the streets: faith, hope, and disparity.
I think the shelter is like 2 blocks back. I'm not sure, about 2 blocks away.
Thank you.
I had been on the street all day. I was hot, I was hungry, and I needed a place to stay. The men's homeless shelter on North Tryon seemed a likely place, but I had heard it could make for a tough night.
You got to sleep one eye open. They take all weapons, so you can't come on the property with them. Like the other night, a guy dropped a pipe in there, and they didn't even know he had the pipe. How you know you're going to get busted in the head?
This recently renovated building opened as a men's shelter in January. It has a new kitchen, shower facilities, and beds for about 400. During this time of year, about 250 men stay here each night. The folks at the shelter thought the camera crew was shooting another story. No one knew I was a reporter. They did, however, discover the can of mace in my pocket and told me to hide it outside. Earlier that day, I met a fellow named Roger in this vacant lot across the street from the county police department where some go to drink. I managed to talk Roger into coming to the shelter for dinner, but I couldn't convince him to stay here overnight. He said the last time he was here, he saw someone get stabbed in the eye with a pencil.
Why did they do that?
I wear a cigarette. I wear a damn cigarette. That's why I ain't stay here. No way.
After dinner, some of the men watch TV. There are a few books available, but they don't look like they get much use.
You sign yourself out when you go out that door.
By 9 o'clock, the TV is off and many of the men are in their bunks. There are 2 sleeping areas in the shelter. One is for those who are in a job program. They pay a nominal fee for their beds and sleep forward to a cubicle. This side is for those who stay here and are not in the shelter's job program.
I got all these beds taken here.
Around here, if you want to keep it, you sleep with. That meant I slept with my clothes and my shoes on. The shelter was hot, but it wasn't the heat that kept me awake. It was. We couldn't keep a camera inside the shelter after lights out, but I managed to record some of what I heard throughout the night. The man you hear is accusing the fellow in the next bunk of trying to steal something from under the man's mattress. The noise, the threats, the arguments continued throughout the night. At one point, a shelter worker tried to keep peace. Though there was no violence, I didn't get much sleep. Wake up is at 5. Some of the men left to work as day laborers at construction sites. I hit the streets again and thought about my stay at the shelter. I had a lousy night last night. But then when I sat on the park bench and I started seeing these people whom I recognized, my heart went out to them because I'm leaving. They're going back. But tomorrow, you'll see what it's like for those who choose to sleep on the streets. Dave Stanley, News 36.
One thing about the shelter, though, they do their best to help folks get jobs, and that is something that's very important for those out on the street.
And we've also talked to Dave Stanley here in the newsroom, and he said, indeed, it was a tense night for him, and he really was scared, no doubt about it.
Harrowing experience.